How did you first get into music?
My brother was having piano lessons and he wasn't enjoying them at all, and every time he'd get off the piano I'd jump straight on it and I'd be begging my mum and dad, but I was only about 4. So from then on I finally got my piano lessons about 6 years old. My dad was a musician. I was always surrounded by music. He was in the RAF and he was a bandsman. So there was always gigs, and then he did jazz in his spare time. And so I really think it was probably my dad's influence. We always had people like Miles Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, a bit of Frank Sinatra. And then later on when I was a teenager, I remember singing along to ELO in the car. Oh, and ABBA. I loved ABBA.
When did you first really believe that you possessed some sort of musical talent?
If I write a song, often my first feeling is like, oh, that's brilliant. I sometimes even cry. I think, oh, I love that. And then about half an hour later, I'm guaranteed to think it's the worst thing I've ever done. And you just have to get over that, because it still probably needs a lot of crafting. So many people, including myself, you know, after about 5 minutes of writing the song, they've had that lovely feeling, and then it goes, and they go, right, screw that up, throw it away, and never get any further. But I've learned to ignore the negative feelings and just trust that if it moved me in the first place, then it must be good.
Can you tell me something about the first song you ever wrote?
It was called Happy December, and I can remember the first 2 lines. Do you remember Happy December, when Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem? Happy December, the shepherds and the wise men came to them. Yes, I remember. And my mum and dad got me to sing it in church.
Have you ever had stage fright or had an on-stage moment?
Well, I've only had one moment where I was at the Pizza Express in Dean Street, which is one of the top jazz clubs in London. And I was halfway through something, and I realised I was singing in a different key to the guitarist. I was sort of saying, oh my God, like that to the band, and they were going, carry on, and I finally found my way back. But it was one of those moments where I could see myself, watching myself. The guitarist was Jim Mullen, and he was one of my big heroes, so I was just devastated. And afterwards I apologised to him, and he said, I thought you were just doing something really clever. No, every fault's a fashion, as my gran used to say.
Tell us about your first real break in the music industry.
I managed to get a meeting with the top music manager in London, because I had an album that I'd done all of my own. And he basically was saying, well, I really love what you do and I'll support you, but I'm not going to sign you up. So it was like a bit disappointing. And then on the way out, my friend Neil said, the manager said, is there anything else I can do? And he said, well, you could give us a support slot at Audley End. The first year I supported Jamie Cullum. And then they rang me back and said, would you like to support the Buena Vista Social Club, who are just superstars of the jazz Latin world. I then did another couple of concerts. I supported Amara Potuando at Kenwood House, which was a massive one, and then Ronan Keating back here. So I had some really kind of, just from that one cheeky little question, I got lots of breaks, and that was really helpful.
What song that you've recorded are you most proud of, and why?
Oh gosh, it's always the last one that I'm totally in love with. That's really hard. I think whenever you ask musicians about their favourite song, it's like asking a parent to say, what's your favourite child? I was really proud when I recorded the song that I wrote with Sam Smith. My first ever album, I guess, was the biggest thing, because it was the first time really in the studio. And, you know, I just suddenly felt like other people, like industry people, were getting behind me. So that was very special.
What does it feel like listening to one of your songs on the radio?
And I remember once just turning on the radio and it was Jazz FM, and there was I didn't even know they were playing it. So that was really special, yeah.
Tell us about your song Father's Day.
That was like a reassuring song to my dad to say, you know, I know that you're worried about me being a musician, that it's a bit of an insecure life. Don't worry, because the reason I know I'm going to be okay is because I'm like you.
You taught the singer Sam Smith. Are you surprised by his success?
Luck is involved, but with Sam all along, really from him being little, when he sang, people listened. He was about 9 years old, and his dad said, what do you think, Joe? We think, you know, it sounds quite nice. And he was literally my first ever singing student. And I said, well, I think he's extraordinary. I think he's brilliant, but I've had maybe loads of kids that are as good as him, I don't know. But I said, he's just, sounds like he doesn't need lessons. But they managed to sort of persuade me to teach him for another sort of 10 years. He kept coming back. I knew he was amazingly talented, but I also knew that the music business can be very fickle.
What is the first thing you tell new singing students?
You can pretend to be a police siren, you can be a growling bear, you can just make silly noises. And a lot singing is about taking a risk. And I think once people start to really play around with their voice, they find out what capabilities are. And it's often the weird, slightly freaky, odd voices are the ones that people really listen to and notice. It's not really about being technically brilliant.
What was your most memorable performance?
I sang Father's Day, my song, with a band at Ronnie Scott's, the top jazz venue in the country. And my mum and dad were there, and my dad was crying and loving it. And because the record label had been supplying free drinks all night, my dad was really enjoying himself, let's say. And on the way home, I said, I think I've done everything now. I've impressed my dad. The next day, my dad rang up and said, I can't remember anything about your set.
If you could make a musical collaboration with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Ella Fitzgerald. I would love to just sing. I'd love to be in her presence and just sing a song with her and feel the warmth of her voice and sing with her.
Tell us about your songwriting process.
I keep a diary. Well, it's more like just free writing in the morning. I just ramble, and often if I've got something that's going on in my head, it'll end up in the diary. And I think that really helps me to have an idea of what subjects I want to write about. But I don't always sit down and think, right, I'm going to write about world peace now. Or it's never as considered as that. It's more like I will just be rambling away at the piano, and then a nice little loop will come to me, or a nice little vamp or an idea, and then words will come, and those words often tie in with the words in my diary. I had this one where I had this mad little and it's often very repetitive. And then, so it's just sort of simple little things like that, and then I take the idea and develop it. I think that piano might be slightly out of tune. Okay. I took a little idea and then I started moving it around the piano. And then the words just sort of fit in around it really, and then so I'll be halfway through writing a song before I've really figured out what it's actually about. So it's more a semi-subconscious process, and then later on when you're refining it, you kind of figure out what it's about. But sometimes you never know what it's about. It's sort of life's mystery, or it'll be about one thing and then you'll realise in 10 years' time it's actually about something else.
What is the music scene like in Saffron Walden, and what would you like to see happen to help develop young talent in the town?
There's so much talent. I think there is something definitely in the water in this area, because there's so much talent that's come out of this place, and it keeps coming. The school's brilliant. There's obviously, now we're lucky we've got Fairycroft House, and there's a lot going on there. And I would love to see some open mic nights and songwriting workshops. I'd love to be involved in them, and I'm currently chatting to people at Fairycroft about doing that.
You released Moving Shadows, an album of jazz covers in the last few years. Do you have any plans to produce any new material?
I've got a new album which I'm working on, so I'm just at the mixing phase of doing that. I want to do a jazz ballads album. I do a musical cabaret, and we've talked about actually recording some of our songs there, because I write from silly daft songs that sound a bit papa to quite complex music, to jazzy songs as well. So yeah, I've just got so much work to do and not enough time.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Ellie.